IntelliPeer CAP Fundamentals on demand. Using SmartFlows to create an inbound call flow. Viewers will learn how to configure flow settings, how to build a flow, and how to configure actions. This module introduces us to SmartFlows, a toolkit to build, automate, and integrate communications workflows and applications tailored to your specific business needs. In this module, we'll create a simple flow, the overall journey that the end user experiences. This flow will contact the user across multiple channels, speaking the setup of a joke, sending the punchline of the joke immediately after that via SMS, and finally, playing recorded laughter. We call this exercise, Tell Me a Joke. We'll begin at the Customer Portal. Select the SmartFlows icon. The menu on the left here includes Audio Library and Assignment, tools that we'll come back to in a later module. For now, let's examine the Flows screen. Much like the List Management and Smart Engage screens, each of the flows created in your environment are available to access here. Let's create a new flow. The Add New button looks a little different in SmartFlows. It's a smaller, blue Add icon, but it's in the same familiar location as the previous tools. And when we select it, a menu opens. For today's exercise, we'll create a new flow and select Smart Agent. This is the Flow Editor, the visual editing tool used to build a flow. There are three panels I want to call your attention to now: the Actions palette, the Board, and the Configuration panel. Each flow is made up of actions. Blocks are icons that represent the actions of a flow. They're placed from the Actions palette onto the Board, which is the canvas within the Flow Editor. We use connectors, wires that link one block to another, to indicate the order in which actions occur. Before we place and connect actions, let's head to the Configuration panel on the right and specify a couple of settings for this flow. We refer to the properties and parameters of the actions as configurations, but there are also a few configurations we can set that apply to the entire flow. First, let's give the flow a name. As before, this title is only seen by you and your collaborators for organization purposes. Same with the description. Next, let's specify a default text-to-speech voice, the voice the flow will use when speaking to the user over the phone. Specifying the default voice here saves time later, because any actions that use text-to-speech will use the default you choose. IntelliPeer's voice library includes voices from Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, IBM Watson, and Microsoft Azure. We recommend using the preview feature in a play audio action to try out different voices. One of our team's favorites is Ava English US from Microsoft, so we'll select Microsoft from the vendor menu and then find Ava English US. These voices do not provide translation, so if we were designing this flow for speakers of another language, we'd provide translated text for the voice to speak. Otherwise, our English text could be voiced with a French accent. Now that our flow has a name and a default TTS voice, let's add a trigger. Triggers are the first subdivision in the Actions palette, and every flow begins with a trigger. Now I'm dragging and dropping an inbound call trigger action onto the board. An inbound call trigger means that it will answer a voice call to a phone number that we assign to it. However, we can't assign the number yet. First, the flow needs to be deployed, distributed to IntelliPeer's network of communication servers across North America and eventually the known universe. Once the flow is deployed, we're going to come back to this block, and this Assign Number button will be lit up and ready to go. Now that we've instructed the flow to answer the call, next we need it to speak the setup of the joke. We'll expand the voice subdivision of the palette and use a play audio action to accomplish that. Now I'm dragging the play audio action out to the board. Now we'll use a connector to link ports between the trigger and the action to tell the flow, first we answer the call, then we speak the setup of the joke. We'll begin with the port on the end of the trigger block and hold the mouse button down. This connector follows our cursor, and we'll connect it to the in port on the play audio action. The following step is for the flow to send an SMS with the joke's punchline. We'll expand the messaging subdivision of the Actions palette and use a Send SMS or MMS action. We're going to place this on the board and connect it to the play audio action. The next step is a pause action. We're going to have the flow stop for a moment. During this pause, the punchline text will leave IntelliPeer servers, travel through the public switched telephone network, over the air, and arrive at the caller's phone. Then the caller can read the punchline. So we'll expand the flow logic subsection of the palette and place a pause action on the board. We're going to connect this back to the send SMS action to continue the sequence, but you've noticed that the send action has 2 ports on its right side. So which one do we use? Let's find out together. To see what each port represents, expand the Actions portion of the configuration panel. For send SMS, the outcomes are on success and on failure to send. Of these, on success is the one we'll use, the one we'll pretty much always use. These options hinge on whether the message successfully left the IntelliPeer platform, not whether the message was received or read by the user. The SMS protocol doesn't have a read receipt notification. That's one of the missing features that compelled Apple to develop iMessage and Google to introduce RCS to carriers. So these action conditions reflect success only in sending the message on the IntelliPeer side. We'll connect the pause action to the onSuccess port. One more thing I want to show you right here is the invert port orientation switch. When selected, the in and out ports switch sides on the block. They still work exactly the same. This just helps you visually organize the flow on your editing board. After the pause, we'll play one more sound, laughter, a cue to prompt the caller to laugh at the joke. That's another play audio action. We'll connect it to the pause. We'll finish the flow with a hang-up action to disconnect the call and connect that to the play audio. Then we'll head up to the upper right to save our work so far. The new version panel appears the first time you save a flow. We can leave this version named as is, or give it a name that specifically identifies it. If you need to present a special holiday message or route calls to a temporary office, modify the existing flow and save it as a unique version. Versions of a flow are saved and can be switched between with a few clicks. As we save our work so far, we'll see several red flags appear on the actions. Those are signals from the flow editor that say, I see you placed actions here, but you still must make configurations. You told me to play audio, but you didn't tell me what audio to play. You said to send an SMS, but didn't specify what the SMS should read. Now, we're going to go back through the flow and make the configurations it needs. Then it will be ready to deploy. We'll begin with the first play audio action. We'll select Configure Audio in the configuration panel, and we'll see another panel appear in the center of the screen. First thing we need to do here is specify the channel this audio is going to be played over, the channel that was opened when the flow answered the call. There's only one choice, but, say it with me, it must be selected. Next, we'll specify the audio to be played. In this case, it's a text-to-speech phrase. It goes in this field here, the setup of the joke. Why did the bike fall over? Once we enter the text and select the add icon, it appears on the left in this area that indicates the audio to be played. This menu here, and this menu here, let us choose the text-to-speech voice that speaks this phrase, in case we wish to override the voice we set earlier. Sometimes a flow will have multiple voices speaking, and this is where we would specify the voice. The play icon allows us to preview how it sounds in the browser.
Why did the bike fall over?
And if there are multiple sounds or text-to-speech phrases in a single play audio action, we can change the order in which they occur with these arrow icons. With the setup line ready to go, we'll exit this panel by selecting that X in the corner. Let's look closely at this new icon on the action. It looks like a little stack of papers with a pencil, and it means that we made a change here, but we haven't saved it yet. It will disappear the next time we save the flow. So let's head to the next step, the punchline of the joke. We're telling this via SMS, so the configuration panel was a little simpler. Annie is a variable that means the number that placed the call. Dinas is a variable that means the number assigned to this flow. So we're telling the flow to send the punchline to the number that called us, with the number that we're going to assign to this flow in the from field of the text message. We haven't assigned this number yet, but we will soon after we've deployed the flow. The final thing to configure here is the actual content of the message. This is where the punchline of the joke will go. Are you ready? Here it is. It was too tired. Okay, we've completed configuration for this step. The next step is the pause. The default pause duration is 1 second. We're going to bump this to 4 seconds to allow time for the message to make it to the caller's phone and for them to read it, which 4 seconds is pretty amazing if you think about the potential distance it must travel. Now cue the laughter. We'll configure audio for that action. Instead of using text-to-speech, we'll use a recorded clip of laughter we have handy for just such a situation. It's not immediately apparent, but these audio text and audio library items here act like tabs. So when we select Audio Library, it will show us the list of clips we have available in our environment. I'm going to hold my mouse button on Crowd Laugh and drag it to the left, and we'll see the Add Audio box turn green. When I let go of the mouse button, there. Now this action is going to play the crowd laugh. We could repeat this process, drag over multiple audio clips and play them in sequence, or add additional text-to-speech phrases, and turn this or any play audio action into an entire comedy routine. But let's keep it simple for now. We'll exit out of this Configure Audio dialog. There's a completed flow. When I save again, we should see all of the warning flags and all of the unsaved change indicators vanish. Now it's time to deploy. When we select Save and Deploy, the editor gives us a little warning, and then the flow moves from the editor to production. This enables us to assign a number, so we'll head back to the very first step in the flow, and now Assign Number is lit up and ready to go. For today, I'll select this number. Then I'll wait a couple minutes for deployment to complete. Now we dial the number to test the flow.
Why did the bike fall over?
And there it is. As I said, this is a simple flow, but it's designed to get you to think about how to use these tools to streamline your communications workflows. In this module, we used the Flow Editor to build and deploy a simple flow. In the next module, we'll discover some additional features of the Flow Editor and discuss best practices for flow construction.